Hello all, it's once again Magi, everyone's lovable alien catboy from a parallel universe. I thought I would do something a little different today and actually walk you through some of the math we're talking about, not just showing it to you. Um, all references will be in the video description below, so you can go and take a look at this stuff for yourself and, get more in-depth as to what's going on. But I thought this would be a great way of showing a practical application of some of the more advanced math that we learn about in university in 0057 Alpha. I was going through my news collection from 57 Alpha, and this particular article caught my eye. Can you predict the future? Yes, of course you can, inside the one equation that can predict weather, sporting events, and more. This article basically goes on to say that the best way to do this is something called Bayes Theorem, which is conditional probability, and we make predictions all the time about the future from incomplete information, which are uncertain. But the more accurate or the more raw data we have, the further out or the more accurate that prediction can be. And I thought I'd give you an example of this from Probability and Statistics for Engineering and Sciences by J. L. DeVore, 8th edition. Link will be in the description. And on pages 79 and 80, they talk about an example of how to predict whether or not you actually have a disease if you test positive for it in the doctor's office. Incidence of a rare disease. Only 1 in 1,000 adults is afflicted with a rare disease for which a diagnostic test has been developed. The test is such that when an individual actually has the disease, a positive result will occur 99% of the time, whereas a false positive will only happen 2% of the time. If a randomly selected individual is tested and tested positive, what is the probability that the individual actually has the disease? Well, we set up a probability tree, and the first probabilities are has the disease or doesn't have the disease, which are 0.001 or 0.999. Then if you multiply that by testing positive so that they have the disease and test positive, the probability for that is 0.00099. And then you add up all the possible ways that you can test positive for the disease, which is has the disease and tests positive, versus has the disease, doesn't have the disease and still tests positive. And you add those together, and then you divide the number of has the disease and tests positive by all the possible ways you can test positive, and the probability comes out to only 0.047 or 4.7% probability that you actually have the disease when you test positive. So that predicts a low likelihood of having the disease when the test is positive, whereas people would normally assume that a 99% accuracy rate on a test, meaning test positive, means that you're 99% likely to have the disease. So this is a way of predicting, using conditional probability, how likely you actually have that disease. This predictive power actually goes into multiple other areas, including prediction of crime offenses that will happen with serial offenders. According to a paper by Mike O'Leary from the Journal of Forensic Psychology 2009 called The Mathematics of Geographical Profiling, if you have a set of areas where an offender has offended, then the probability of the next area being likely is a triple integral of all of those probabilities multiplied together by dz d alpha for the prior, and then this formula with hz and pi alpha added in, based on the probability that a particular location is the central operating facility for a serial offender, and you can use this to predict the likelihood of where a criminal will strike next. So yes, this Bayesian statistics in general, based on conditional probabilities that we already know, can predict high likelihood of future events happening, especially when it comes to serial offenders. Now, it gets interesting because this original article also talked about how one scientist believes that we can have mystical or ability to predict the future without conditional probability. And the book that this is excerpted from, Everything is Predictable, How Bayesian Statistics Can Explain Our World, says that he is most likely certainly wrong. However, a Bayesian meta-analysis by skeptics from 2013 took a look at studies for telepathy, precognition, and clairvoyance, and found odds of Bayes factor evidence of 330 to 1 in favor of psi existing, including precognition. However, they rejected the evidence due to no plausible physical mechanism and possible publication bias. However, since all of psychology was undergoing a replication crisis, let me see if I can find it here. Replication crisis psychology. Well, yeah, it leads to the concern about the credibility of findings because replication studies are not published. So as a result, significant results may not actually be replicable. So that's kind of a bit of a knock in favor against the precognition thing. So maybe the way that we predict the future is using limited information and conditional probability combined with pattern guessing and other possible small amounts of information coming backwards in time via a precognitive source, which is a minority, and thus we can predict the future using the results of conditional probability and be able to predict everything from weather to where a criminal is going to strike next. Anyway, I thought you would enjoy this look at the math of prediction, and yes, you can find this formula in the references along with a statistics textbook for teaching other predictive measures like regression and correlation. And hopefully you'll have a leg up on being able to predict your own future by better understanding the statistics of what goes on around you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little lesson. And as for today, this is me, Magi, your lovable alien catboy from a parallel universe, signing off. Stay frosty, everybody.